September 25th. If the Aborigine drafted an IQ test, all of Western civilization would presumably flunk it. Stanley Garn. Being called dumb is hard on our self-esteem, but accepting that insult is even worse. Who has the right to lay such labels on anyone else? There are many kinds of smarts that don't show up in IQ tests or shine in the classroom. At best, the definition of intelligence is relative. Many of us shore up our self-esteem by judging others according to our own specialized standards. The school teacher who snickers at her mechanic's grammar probably doesn't realize that her own mechanical ignorance makes the mechanic snicker. The artist who can't do his own taxes may well feel superior to the tax preparer who would prefer a snapshot of his own dog to any of the artist's work. The list goes on, around and around, all egos vying for an upper slot. Obviously, what shows us as less than brilliant on our one scale of measurement may place us near the top of another. As the quote above suggests, how well would any of us fare if we were dropped into the outback and had to come up with the insights and skills to excel there? We need to stop making phony, superficial comparisons to aggrandize ourselves. We need to stop putting down and writing off people as dumb, and never should we believe anyone who applies that label to us. Only dumb people call other people dumb. Only dumb people call other people dumb. So that first quote, if the Aborigine drafted an IQ test, all of Western civilization would presumably flunk it. Most IQ tests, especially in Western society, have been built in such a fashion that they favor the wealthy, who could afford elitist levels of education, and the majority, which are usually people who aren't people of color or of different cultures, and the privileged, the people who have had the time to actually study the very specific formats of intelligence that go into intelligence testing. As a child, I did very well, and as an adult still too, I do very well at intelligence tests. And it became a cornerstone of my self-esteem to be smarter than other people, While the very society in which I live, and which I tested very highly, places lesser value on my intelligence because of my gender and because of my skin color. And it is assumed by a lot of people that in order to achieve above the expectations of brown-skinned women in American society, specifically, one has to be smarter than the average human being, and it doesn't matter what the social hierarchy is between myself and the white male who didn't graduate college down the road is, what the differences in our lives are. It doesn't matter, because if you dress us both up well enough and stand us side by side, it will always be assumed that he is more intelligent than I am, according to the society standards that we live in at large, because it's always assumed that he had easier access to the resources necessary to pass those tests. It's literally it. It's all about resources and where we divide those resources and where they go. As we age, people assume that we all have equal access to resources. Not true. And we all have interests that we generally funnel our resources into. And the more resources you have, the more choices you have as far as what interests to develop. So when it says, as the quote above suggests, how well would any of us fare if we were dropped in the outback and had to come up with the insights and skills to excel there, I know a lot of people who've never been to the outback, and I know of a lot of people who've never been in survival situations who feel very confidently that they could survive in those situations because of the amount of resources that they've been able to put into practicing survival, because they've never actually had to survive for real. And people think about high-stress situations and what they would do in them, And it's one thing to do it for sport. It's another thing to have to do it over a sustained period of time, for an entire lifetime, for entire childhoods, for entire developmental periods before you reach a certain age. There's this ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's something that people who have a whole, it's like if you have a certain amount of adverse childhood experiences, it is assumed that you will have a harder time functioning as an adult in the society that I live in, the society that we live in Western society. And it's because of the trauma scarring on the brain and how difficult it is for the brain to recognize change in situations. So even I've had to train my brain to recognize that my situation has changed so that I can up-level the way that I behave in reference to my current state of existence so that I don't repeat behaviors that allowed me to survive in my previous state of existence, but that would negatively impact where I'm at right now. That shit's hard. It's just really hard. It's so hard. And there are so many people who don't have access to the resources necessary to do that, to change their lifestyle. And there are a lot of people who are just happy to have a life to be grateful for. And it is no one person's place to decide their own superiority over others because of generalized minutia, skin color, gender, financial background, current financial earning, ability to excel at certain hobbies. It's always weird to me when people are like, I can do this, this, and this, and so that makes me better than other people. And nobody ever comes out and says that outright. Very few people come out and say that outright, but some people will if they're comfortable enough with you, and it's always like, oh, oh boy. But we are all bugs on a rock at the end of the day, with one thing in common, and that is the finality of our lifespan. We all die. Each individual experience within the greater of human experience itself is special, and everybody is doing the best they can with what they were given. So, only dumb people call other people dumb. That was a long-winded one. Thanks for, if you made it this far, thanks. Have a good day. Hi. It is my genuine hope that you got something positive out of this video, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video, maybe shared it with somebody you know, and then subscribe to my YouTube channel. Have a good day.